Hey everyone, welcome back to Hero Wars Guide. I'm going to talk today about setting the difficulty level for the Asgard Raid. I'm going to start out by talking about some general concepts that apply at any level, and then I'm going to share a tool that you guys can use to apply to your specific situations and make the best decision on the level for your guild. Alright, moving on to the general concepts for level selection. I'm going to start with an example of what not to do. It's a pretty common practice for guilds to set a level that allows as many of their guildmates as possible to get to the individual damage rating of 10 million. And while that's a noble goal to help out your guildmates, this is, I think, the wrong approach here. And the reason for that is the individual rewards are very small compared to the other pieces of the pie. What I have here on the screen is a full chart of the individual damage rewards starting from 15k going all the way up to 10 million. And you can see here that if you look at the total amount given for each resource type, that the amounts for even 10 million are not that large, and the difference between 10 million and several tiers down. For most resource types, the difference is just not that big. You can see only 6 crystal, only 6 radiant crystal, 6 of the vibrant, and the insignia is a little bit larger, the difference of 14 for the base and the greater. And of course you get the seed only at that last level. But if you were to look at these individual rewards versus what you get for the minion phase, it's really a drop in the bucket. You can see here this section called expected is what you would get from the minion phase if you win every single one of the nodes on average. As I mentioned in a video a couple of weeks ago, there's some randomness as to what you actually get, which hits the lower levels quite a bit harder. But if your guild is established, you've been playing the game for a while, I'm sure you're looking at least getting to the 105 starting point. Probably a lot of you are much higher. And at that point, the individual rewards really pale in comparison to what you're getting out of the minions. And then also, if I pull up the boss rewards shown on screen here, this is what you get for beating the bosses. I only have listed here up to 150, but that should apply, I think, to most people at this point. Again, the rewards here, you get 115 of the radiant crystals, and almost 100 for some of these stronger bosses of the greater insignia. So individuals is really small compared to these things. Okay, so getting into what I think you should be doing, which is picking the level based on where most of your guild can win most of the minion fights. The minion loot here is pretty strong as an overall share of the total, and you can see that the amount goes up pretty significantly with each step that you take up the list here, which is why I say most of the guild winning most of the fights rather than saying everyone's winning everything. If you're at that point where you're trying to make sure that everyone can win every fight, then the top half of your guild is going to be losing out on a lot of potential rewards here. Okay, so I think it's mostly about where is most of your guild going to get most of the minion rewards, and then you may bump it up slightly from there, depending on how things look in your specific situation. And some of the things that might drive you to do that is if you're getting fairly close to beating the last boss that your guild fights, and you think bumping the level up the starting level up by 1 could help you finish off that next guild boss, that's also going to be a big jump in rewards for everyone in your guild if you can get one more boss down. You can see here Radiant's jumping up by about 20 for each of the last several levels, and the greater insignia is jumping up by 15. And those are really, those two types along with the seeds are where you want to focus. You're going to max out all the crystal that you need in the vibrant and the regular insignia well before you're going to get all the radiants and the graders that you need. By the time you have these radiants and graders done, you're going to have twice the amount of crystal that you needed to develop whatever set of heroes. that you're putting together. Okay, so if you think you can get one more boss done, then I think that's a good reason to maybe go one level up from what you have been doing. And then I think also if there's a fair portion of your guild where the minion phase is just getting boring and it's very easy for them to complete, they are going to be more challenged by the 140 or the next level up for your guild, and that's just going to force the next level of innovation on how you're approaching the fights, making sure you do the best tactics. It'll keep it interesting for everyone. Your top earners will get a little bit more, and the bottom earners will probably stay the same or maybe lose a little bit. But my philosophy there is that the top half of your guild is really doing the work on the boss, which is giving bigger rewards to the lower half of the guild anyway. So if you have to pick where a little more goes to the top half or a little more goes to the bottom half, you should reward those players who are contributing the most to your guild. That might be a little bit of a controversial point, but that's the way I look at it. Is like perhaps in general economics, if the top earners are getting a little bit more and they can bring your guild up to the next boss, then it really is going to trickle down to everyone. Okay, so then moving on to what I really wanted to share with you guys today, which is this tool here, which you'll be able to use to customize to your specific situation. There are a few different potential use cases for how to fill this out, and I'll just walk through a couple examples there. Okay, so I'll just start out by showing what it would look like for a single player coming in to figure out what would be best for them. And I'll fill it out for where I'm at, which is my current situation, starting at 140. We beat the 140 boss, but are not quite finishing off the 150. I do get up to 10 million. I get the 1 squad, all of the 2 squads. I get all of the minions done, basically. So then this here out to the right is going to show me the loot that I should expect from all 3 portions there. The boss rewards, the individual, as well as all the minions. And this does take into account the fact that it's possible loot for the minions, and depending on your level, you'll get variable percentages of what's possible. All that's factored into these formulas here. So, I get 500 crystal, almost 200 insignia, almost 250 radiance, 10 seeds each week. Okay, but then what I want to think about is what's going to happen if we move up to starting at 140. I think we're close enough to finishing off the 140 boss as it is. No, I'm sorry, we do kill the 140 boss. I think we're close to finishing off the 150. So I'm going to fill in here that we beat the 150 boss if we start at 140. I'm still going to get 10 million. I think that I'd beat all of the minion squads, but let's say for the sake of argument that I lose to Merida or something and it takes me a second attempt to bring her down. I would of course sacrifice this single row squad because the rewards there are very weak, and use my second shot to take down the mini boss instead. And if you want full details, I've got videos on how to prioritize there in the minion, how to approach the minion phase altogether, that you guys can check out. All right, but then looking at this this different outcome here, based on my projections, I'd do quite a bit better in the 140 start, and maybe I want to also take a look at the pessimistic outcomes as well. Maybe we fail to beat the 150 boss. There's really no way that I would fail this many squads, but I'll say that I'm going to lose both the single squad and one of the 2 squads here, and then we're going to not get the next boss. So you can see here the rewards are a little bit less, but the Vibrant's still up a little, and the Radiant is still up quite a bit, from the 130 situation. Greater, likewise, is also up quite a bit from the 130 baseline. And seed remains the same. So, even though maybe I'm not going to do very well in the minions in this pessimistic approach, this is still for me the better option. And if not for this research in this tool, I might not know just how big the gains stand to be. All right, so now I'm going to move into how you can use this thing to find out what's best for your entire guild as opposed to just one individual. So my starting point here is a few different scenarios. I've got my current here listed again, and then 4 different possible outcomes if we move up to 140. These no boss are assuming that we fail to clear the 150 boss, even though we move up 1. And so that's the no boss versus boss here. And then good minions and bad minions is just how does this look with good minion outcomes versus bad. But the key point here is that not everyone in your guild is at the same strength. So I've kind of charted out what maybe the top of the guild looks like, but there's going to be some other groups within your guild, and maybe you want to break it up into 3 or 4 different categories and put in some different outcomes for how it looks in all those different groups. And I'm not going to make you sit through me filling this out for that entire group, so let's just assume I did that work. All right, and here it is. So you can see here these new columns from what we looked at last time. I broke it up into 4 different groups, the people at the top strength, upper, lower, and bottom, and then a count of people that are in each group, where I've put most people somewhere in the middle. I've got these different scenarios. Each different scenario is listed for each type of person. A lot of these things will auto-fill in based on the scenario that I filled in above, but I tweaked these expected outcomes so that people in these lower strength tiers are maybe not getting 10 million even where we're at right now, and if we start at 140, then they're going to drop even lower. And then, just a few different potential outcomes depending on how the minion fights go for everyone. And this is now a lot to look at here in the expected columns, and you can do that if you want to see individually how each group might do in each potential case. But I've also summarized it in the sheet here, and this will autofill based on what's configured in this level selector sheet. This guild summary is going to roll things up to a top level. So this is telling me that across all the different roles in the guild, each different scenario type is listed here. What we're doing right now is yielding across the entire guild this amount of resources, and then all these different scenarios I get to see how much crystal is likely to come in, how much radiant crystal is likely to come in, etc. If a number is significantly below the average for a resource type, it gets put into red, and if it's much better, then it goes into green. You can see then that this current is below the average of what might be expected when we move up to 140. Obviously, if everything's the optimistic case, we do get that 150 boss, and we in general do really well against the minions, then everything's way up. And if we fail to beat that boss and the minions go very poorly, then it's down. But all of those, what I can see here from this is that as long as either one of those things turns out good, then we're going to have a really nice increase here. Because if I compare the important resource types of the radiant, the greater, and the seed against these other scenarios, they're all wins. And even this case here where we fail to beat the next boss and we do poorly against the minions, the amount of radiant given is still improved, and the amount of greater is up slightly. We do come out a little behind in the seeds, but it's about even. So unless things with the minions went really poorly from stepping up, I think it's fairly clear for our guild that in our case we'll do better if we move up 1, and potentially quite a bit better. Okay, and I want to talk about one last use case here, and that is where you've actually made a switch between levels but it's hard to tell whether it's actually improved your situation or hurt your situation. This would allow you to track the results in a pretty simple way. You can just track the outcomes here, and it will tell you the loot that you probably got based on doing a certain amount of damage and beating a certain amount of minion squads, etc. So what I've done here is I created one player group here for myself, and then there'd be a couple of rows for each of my guildmates as well. And then really all they would need to do is come in here and say, fill out this orange section with whatever their outcomes were in the 130 fights as opposed to the 140. So again, we'll say, in my own case, when we started at 130, we beat 140. I win all the squads. When we start at 140, hopefully we'll beat the 150, and I'll still win everything. But then your guildmates could come in and say, hey, I got 10 million at the 130, but now that you guys moved it to 140, I can't do anything right anymore. So, I did much less damage, and I missed a whole bunch of the squads, and now I'm getting less. Turns out this guy's still doing better, but in any case, that that could be an interesting thing to learn as well. And then you'll still get the summary here. Oh, I mislabeled this. Sorry. Yeah, so it will roll it up to the guild, and it'll tell you what's the better scenario for you. Is it the current 130, or is it better when you move up to the 140 boss? The answer there could be surprising, as it might be here, where it kind of looks like we did poorly, but there's a substantial gain, even for the people who are doing worse at the higher level. It's a little bit of data entry that has to be done, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not too bad. They really, if you were to fill this out for the names of the people in your guild, then they really only have to fill in 10 cells of data. The tool will do the rest of the work for you. All right, I think that covers the different ways I imagine this might be used. I'll have a link to this tool in the description. You can open it up and then use this create a copy feature, and then you'll get a local version that's just private to you. You can share it out with your guild so they can edit it. Okay, I hope this helps you all get a little bit more resources out of Asgard. And if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Thank you.